Hi, everybody. This is Jordan Ramirez, and you are tuning in to a brand new episode of Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez. And for the month of Halloween, we have our returning guest, Courtney Hughes. And Courtney would like to introduce the film that she has selected for us.
Hi, thank you, Jordan. So the movie that we'll be introducing is I Married a Witch, which I
Mm.
believe came out in 1942, starring Veronica Lake and Frederic March. Basically, the story wraps around this guy. I can't remember the character's name, but it's basically a curse follows this family because the the guy in like the pioneer days accused a young woman and her father of witchcraft and they were burned at the stake. So basically they cursed that family for all eternity to be in love with a woman, but it would always be an unhappy marriage. And one day we come to the present in the film, the present guy in the family who's running for politics and who's going to be married to Susan Hayward, who is really a piece of work in this thing.
Hmm.
And but she decides, well, I'm going to make things a little difficult for him, but something ends up happening where that does not work out.
No. So yeah, I do love it. So the character's name that he plays, Wallace Woolley, and he was yeah,
Yes.
no. And his ancestors were the Woolies from the days of, we'll call it like the Salem witch trial days, late not late 17th century, early 18th century America. And it goes all the way from the colony days up until like present day 1942, which is when the movie is set. But yeah, I like this movie. It's a pretty interesting film, and it's one of those rare Hollywood movies that almost disappeared from the radar, except maybe when they show it on TV every now and then.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have Turner Classic Movies at my house. Like I don't have it on my TV or anything. But
Hmm.
where I work, Turner Classic Movies is an actual channel on the television. I thought,
Mm.
okay, so every so often, every night actually, I check that channel to see what's new, what's not new,
Hmm.
and unfortunately, though, I have never seen that movie being played on Turner Classic Movies, at least of this year.
Mm.
So I've never seen this movie played in TV at all. I actually found
Mm.
this one on YouTube, which that's nice.
Yes. I think the one I watched was I think the one you mentioned, I think the one I watched was from the Criterion channel. The Criterion has this movie, and I was expecting there to be like more bonus features, but the only ones they have were like the interview with the director of the film and maybe like an essay by those who have seen this movie. But it's fine. It's not what I was hoping for, but it's worth a while.
Yeah, I agree. Like, especially when it comes to older movies, I'm one that loves to watch the bonus features. Like, I have the box set of Gone with the Wind. So, aside from the movie, you got hours of bonus features,
Hmm.
documentaries, interviews, and I love that stuff. And
Hmm.
um it's disappointing when you can get a movie and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I love it. What can I get out of it?" And then there's like literally little to nothing with it. And I'm like,
Mm.
"Really?
Yeah.
Why?"
No. Yes. But as you said, I wasn't aware that Susan Hayward was going to be in this movie, and as you say, she is really good in this picture. And speaking of Gone with the Wind, she was one of the actors who did audition for the role of Scarlett O'Hara, uh, back when they were still searching for every actress to play the role. But she may not have gotten the part, but she did get a part in this film, and she had a successful career past the 40s, like the 1950s and 1960s decade,
Yep.
in almost every other movie that she was in. And I think to me, she's one of my favorite big named actresses of the golden era of Hollywood.
I can understand that. I've seen her in quite a few movies. She actually did a couple biblical movies.
Mm.
One being, oh shoot, the David picture with Gregory Peck.
Oh,
Um,
oh goodness. I don't know the movie on the top of my head, but I can understand
I
what you're talking
know.
about.
She did that one, and then I believe she did something called Demetrius and the Gladiators. I think it's what it was.
I think.
That one, that one had oh, he was in Samson and Delilah.
Oh, oh my goodness. Tyrone. No, 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 no. I was thinking of Tyrone Power, but no, 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 no. I'm thinking of another actor. I can try to picture him, but I don't know
Victor
his name.
Mature.
Victor Mature. That's it.
Victor
Victor
Mature.
Mature. Yes. Yes.
Yes. This movie was Susan Hayward co-starred him, and Deborah Paget was also in that one as well,
Hmm.
which drew me to the film. But
Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah.
but yes, and then of course, who could forget her really, really wicked role, if you will, in Valley of the Dolls?
Yes. Of course. But yeah, Susan Hayward's great in this picture. And before we recorded the interview, you mentioned that Veronica Lake and Frederic March, who are the leads in the film, they had little chemistry off screen as opposed to when they are on screen. Do you have like an excerpt of maybe like what was going on between these two? Like what were some of the issues?
So, from what I understand, if I have this correctly, is that he did not consider her a brilliant actress, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess it was just more of a him making snide remarks towards her in her career,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't take it so well. Rumor
Hmm.
has it that she put like stones, I believe like big rocks in her dress or something. So when he
Oh.
picked her up, it would be heavy.
Oh my goodness.
And then there was a
Uh,
couple other pranks that she pulled on him, and I thought,
hmm.
wow, okay, she did not take it from him. Okay,
Hmm.
and I found it really shocking because watching this movie, I thought they were just so adorable. Now, first, like when you watch the movie, he wants nothing to do with her. She's more or less
Mm-mm.
like this child. He's like, get away from me, kid. Like, get away from me. But it turns in like he falls in love with her and they're just so cute together, and it's,
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's very similar, and spoiler alert here, but it's very similar to what happened with Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds in Singing in the Rain. If
Mm.
anyone has ever seen that movie, they have good chemistry in that film, but Debbie wrote in her books that he was not kind to her. She was 19 at the time. Her big starring role at that time wasn't a professional dancer, he was, and things were just very, very hard for her at that time. She's been quoted as saying there's two things in her life that was very hard: childbirth and Singing in the Rain.
Oh wow.
So
uh,
it's very similar to that. Like you look at them and you go, they have such great chemistry, and then you hear they didn't get along, and it's like, what?
hmm.
How? But I guess that also shows you how good of an actor or an actress they are. And
Mm.
it also reminds me of the opposite effect with, again, Gene Kelly and Esther Williams when they did Take
Mm.
Me Out to the Ball Game. They
Mm-hmm.
have little to no chemistry in that movie. And Esther
Mm.
Williams also wrote he was not very kind to her during the making of that movie for various
Mm.
reasons as well.
Wow.
So it definitely shows you, okay, you can be a real good actor and not like somebody, or you cannot like somebody and really show you don't like somebody.
Yeah, I can understand it, and I will give a shout out to your review for Take Me Out to the Ball Game. It's one of the films I have not seen from MGM, but I will give it a shot of if I have not seen it. And I mean, I like golden era films, and especially since this one, I Married a Witch is an interesting take on a screwball comedy, but with supernatural elements because it's appropriate for
Yes.
Halloween. It's very funny, and it's like there are moments that are a bit repetitive, but it's part of the humor of the
Mm.
picture that I think makes it worthwhile when I watch it all the way. And it's very much similar to another film. I don't know if this will have the same effect. Bell Book and Candle with Kim Novak and James Stewart, which has a very similar scenario about a regular ordinary man who falls in love with a woman who it turns out she is a witch.
Yeah, I seen that movie, gosh, about 2, 3 years ago.
Mm,
And I honestly don't remember too much about it. I remember
mm,
watching it. I wasn't a fan of that
okay.
one, but I will always remember that that came out, I believe, the same year that Vertigo came out. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe, if I have the story correctly, that when Hitchcock wanted Kim Novak, there was a deal that, okay, you can use me for your film Vertigo, but Jimmy Stewart is going to be my co-star for my movie Bell Book and Candle, and they worked
Mm,
that out. So they actually did
yeah.
two movies in the same year together.
Yes. So yeah, and this film, if I read it correctly, was one of the inspirations for the hit television series Bewitched, starring Liz Montgomery. And the first of the two Darrens was Dick York. And then later he was replaced by Dick Sargent. I think when Dick York was unable to continue carrying on his role because of issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have never seen that show. My mom grew up with it. I don't know if my dad grew up with it or not, but I think he's familiar with it. But my mom would always say that that little nose wiggle that Liz Montgomery does, she always
Hmm.
said, "I used to want to do that." And I actually did watch a documentary on Miss Montgomery
Mm,
about last year, 2 years ago,
mm,
and it was a big thing when they got to her Bewitched era.
hmm.
A lot of people were like, "Oh my gosh!" Everywhere you turned, everybody wanted to do the nose thing. Everybody wanted to do the nose thing.
Hmm.
So it was very popular. But
Yes.
I definitely can see, like, just from what I've heard of the show and then what I've seen with this movie, I definitely
Hmm.
can see the connection big time, considering that
Yes.
we have a mortal man with a supernatural woman.
Yes. Mixing like slapstick humor with supernatural elements, but just for a comedic effect, which I think is what makes this film so endearing. I also like the supporting characters in this film. You have, besides Susan Hayward, you have Robert Benchley, who plays his doctor friend in the picture, and you have the always affable Cecil Kellaway playing her father, who also is a witch. And there are moments in the film when he is trying to prevent the relationship between the mortal man and a woman who has lived for centuries to continue their relationship, which is what I thought was pretty interesting about the dynamic between the father and the daughter in this story.
I agree. I think, I mean, we see them both, and they basically have that same connection at first, where they want to get after the man, and they're like, we're gonna make his life miserable. But then
Hmm.
when things change for her, she changes, and her heart changes, and she, falls in love with them. Where he's like, "No, we still want to make him suffer." She's like, "I don't want him to suffer, Daddy."
Yes.
And now a message from Jordan Ramirez for Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez.
I want to take a break from this episode to thank my listeners/viewers who watch the videos on my YouTube channel and listen to each new episode on Spotify. While this show is a labor of love and passion that isn't about the movies that I like, this is also a show that is about the films that you like. Have a film that you want to recommend to the podcast? Make sure to recommend it in the comments section on YouTube and on Spotify, and you will receive a shout out in a future episode. Want to be a guest on the podcast? Click on the sign up form link in the episode description for further details. If you like this episode or my previous episodes, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more interviews in the near future. The goal for this channel is to reach up to 100 subscribers both on YouTube and on Spotify. It's just that easy. And now, back to our regularly scheduled episode. But yeah, speaking of Veronica Lake, I have seen another of her pictures around the same period. Probably one of the most famous films. I wouldn't say the most famous, but one of. I liked her in Sullivan's Travels with another big name, Joel McCrea, from Preston Sturges.
I
One of
like him.
my Yes, I love Joel McCrea and Preston Sturges's movies. both great together. And another film I haven't seen, but this was made the same time that she did this movie, This Gun for Hire from Paramount Pictures with Alan Ladd Sr., not Jr. Um, she could do both drama, she could do comedy, she could do almost any genre picture during this period. And as you mentioned, she had her famous trademark hairstyle that was fashionable when she was making movies in this period. And then after like the post-war period, her popularity started to wane and it just really got hard for her to get decent roles, I guess.
I agree. And if I remember correctly, she was one of the few people that also had a stage mother at that time. Like I guess
Mm,
she didn't have a good relationship with her mom, which really interested me about her life because Judy Garland suffered that same problem. And I
mm,
find that people like that have issues when it comes to family members and the studio system and stuff.
mm-hmm.
I always wonder, okay, what were they like? Like how did they fight against this stuff? And that's why I'm really interested in getting her autobiography. I'm really interested in reading it and seeing what she says in her stories.
Yeah. Absolutely. I I would say that I do like her talent. I do like the fact that she tried so hard to prove that she was more than just, the fashionable wear and just, you know, the girl that was part of the studio system. I can understand that she wanted to be more than just an actor who was making these types of pictures. And I can understand the relationship between her and Frederic March in this film was more of just being sort of a get back attitude. And I always thought that even though they may not have liked each other off screen, I still thought they had a professional working relationship uh, to make sure that they get this movie done on time, to get this movie made, and also that without, even though they may have had issues off screen, I still think it would have been. I still thought that it worked better on screen with how they try to connect to the audience, no matter what goes on the set.
I agree. Like I said, their chemistry in the film is really, really good. Like I said, I fell for it. I'm just
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, they're so adorable. I
Mm.
especially my favorite moment with them is when they're in the room and she tries to tell him what's
Hmm.
going on, who she really is, and all he wants to do is make love to her pretty much. And he's like, oh, yes, dear, I'm listening. She's like, you're not listening to me. But then he's like, okay, I'll tell you tomorrow. And it's
Hmm.
just so cute. And I don't know, I really liked it.
Hmm.
I
Yes.
thought they worked really well off each other.
Yes. So, I know I think I asked you before the interview, but the director of the film, Rene Clair, I know you may not have a lot of information about him, so I'll say a little bit about this director. So Rene Clair, before he came to Hollywood, he was known for making these sort of French realist pictures, like sort of surreal movies. He made a film called Interacte back in 24, and he did a film called, I think it was like On Nos la Liberté, which he claims that Charlie Chaplin stole his premise when he made his film Modern Times back in 1936, and it resulted in a lawsuit. Uh, I I don't know exactly what happened after he's filed a lawsuit against Charlie Chaplin. I think there might have been like a settlement in court. But it was just like a reminder that he did make a film that Charlie Chaplin, I think coincidentally, he had his own ideas, but the directors claimed that he stole it from one of his pictures. So who knows? Depending on which side of the story you listen to. But yeah, I think it's one of the most interesting films that he made, even though he doesn't have really that much of like a whole filmography that he made when he was in Hollywood. He made a very few films, and then after that, he pretty much came back to France and he continued his career back there, and he died in France, and very little was talked about his record making movies in Hollywood.
Oh, that's really sad.
It is. I mean, I from I guess what I read, maybe I got this from Wikipedia or maybe from some other sources, that he did make a few pictures, and some of the pictures he made were either moderately successful or not that successful when they were released
Ah.
in theaters. So either that or he was trying to get the movies that he wanted to be make. But I do like that in this film, even though it is a fantasy and it's a screwball comedy, I do love uh at that time the use of practical special effects that they use in this picture, such as miniature models, double exposure, the use of reverse trick photography that they had to use in the picture, for such as the use of like the smoke as apparitions. When you see the beginning of the movie after there was a lightning storm that their spirits are in like or only seen in smoke form. I think that was like a double layered exposure effect. I may not be an expert in special effects, but that was like something that I think he excelled at. He could do both physical comedy and he also could do magic type effects, which I think is what made this film so it may have been unusual at the time, but for me, it's something that I find very amusing to watch.
I agree. I agree for its time. The special effects are really good, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is so fun. And I especially love it when her dad's always in the alcohol bottle and he's
Mm-hmm.
always drinking and stuff, and you can see the smoke in there. It's just really really fun. And
Mm-hmm.
I think part of me. I don't like using the phrase, oh, they're good for their time, because it makes it
Mm-hmm.
sound like, oh, well, they don't hold up.
Mm-hmm.
Some movies with effects, yes, you could tell they're really dated. But I
Mm-hmm.
think you can also look at it and go, this is what they had at that time. They weren't advanced like we are now. And
Mm-hmm.
what they used was incredible,
Yes.
And it's like, I'm personally not gonna sell them out short. Like
Mm.
it you had to been, I think, really, really good at what you did back then to give a really good, you know, look of what you did with the special effects and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
especially like with Veronica Lake going down the
Oh,
railing and then she flies
yeah.
back up. Like,
Yes.
okay, that's probably them just rewinding the footage and stuff.
Yeah. Like
But
yeah.
people have done that for years. Heck, the film that comes to mind that they actually used that going rewinding the footage things was Batman and Robin from the 90s.
Yes. Yes. Well, yeah. So yeah, they always like reverse the film footage, and it's not the idea of reversing the film footage is not something that people would say is advanced. It's actually very simple. It's basically you take a piece of film and you reverse it. It's very common. It is something that you may have seen in other, films that use special effects, but they were not. But uh, one of my favorite examples is in Jean Cocteau's version of Beauty and the Beast from 1946. And that film, they had to use like really great camera effects, like trick effects. So this film, I feel like it almost feels like it's in that sort of same category because it feels sort of like a fantasy. It feels like a fantasy screwball comedy that feels like a fairy tale.
I did. I actually really like that movie. I think I've only seen it twice, but I remember really liking it when I watched
Hmm.
it. So I'm
Yes.
definitely glad you brought that up.
Yes. And it's really amazing to bring, if they had like another additional feature, and this is just me, if they did it, I would love for maybe a special bonus feature talking about the visual effects of the movie, like have one person talk about the sound effects and then another person talk about what practical effects they had to use in this film. Because in the movie there were like miniatures, there were double exposure effects, there were reverse effects, all sorts of things that people could easily understand what this is about, and maybe they could talk about it on this special bonus feature. I wish they had added that for the movie.
I totally agree. And actually, you bringing that up made me think of The Invisible Man, the
Mm-hmm.
original with Claude Rains, which happens to
Yes.
be one of my favorite movies.
Mm.
Um, on the DVD, they give you the bonus features. They tell you how the effects were done, what they had to do to achieve those looks and that effect. And
Mm.
it goes on. It even tells you, like, okay, after this movie, this is how many sequels were, this is who was in it, yuck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the special features talked a lot about that. And I agree. Like, I'm like, yeah, a lot of us that love older films, especially, are like, we want to see this. That's like showing someone The Wizard of Oz and
Mm-hmm.
not giving them any attention to detail, any documentary
Mm-hmm.
ever, and someone
Yeah.
going, well, how was the fire thing done? How was the flying of monkeys done? There's a
Yeah.
lot of magic in those older films, and
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Like, it's such a missed opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
for people not to go, let's make a little documentary. Let's talk about this. Let's
Mm-hmm.
find anyone that's alive that worked on this particular film and talk
Mm-hmm.
to them.
Mm-hmm.
I wish people would do that. Go, there's still people alive that worked in Hollywood at that time. I wish they'd, find these guys and go, listen, let's talk about this movie. Could you tell me details? Let's put it on a DVD, you
Yes.
know?
Yes, very much so. So the other movies that I know that this is a great film that you recommended, and I love this movie from beginning to end. And I was surprised it was rather a short movie, like around 70 to 80 minutes long, I think it was.
Yes, it's not a very long movie. I think it's what, an hour and 17 minutes, so
Yeah,
to
I
speak.
think it's like around 70 minutes. Something
Yes.
like yeah.
And yeah, it's not very long, but it kept my attention. And
Mm,
what's really incredible about this particular film in general was,
mm,
like you said, it's part screwball comedy.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
newsflash, I'm not really big into screwball comedy. I
Mm,
tried watching Bringing Up Baby.
mm-hmm.
I did not like that one.
Okay.
I tried getting into Arsenic and Old Lace, and a friend of mine loves that movie.
Mm,
Not for me.
mm,
But I actually liked His Girl Friday, which is
mm,
basically a screwball comedy. But
mm-hmm.
that was one that I actually liked. And
Yes.
when I saw this one, I'm like, well, this one's a lot of fun too. So
Yeah, it
I guess
is.
for me, it depends on the plot and the film,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I don't know. I'm thinking of giving Arsenic and Old Lace another go, but Bringing Up Baby probably not, just because
Mm.
I think what irritated me most about that movie was Katharine Hepburn's character.
Okay.
So that's just me.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, anything that has to do with old time Halloween type movies, whether it's maybe it's for fun or maybe it's a rarity that maybe people don't know about if it's related to Halloween for uh maybe for that. I would love to watch Bell Book and Candle with as we mentioned before, James Stewart and Kim Novak from Vertigo, because it is a comedy film and it does have supernatural elements. Any film that features like a subversive take on like the old tropes of witches or witchcraft, or like monster movies. Well, there's another one that does fit in this category, but I think people talk about it a lot on other podcasts. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein from 1948. I remembered seeing it when I think I was in high school when I first saw that movie, and it's supposed to be like a horror comedy movie.
um okay, so I really need to see those movies.
Yeah.
But I I think I've only seen the one. Um I can't remember the title, but they do meet up with, I think, Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Wolfman. And then it has a cameo from the Invisible Man, which this one was voiced by Vincent Price
Oh,
at the end.
that's Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Is it? Oh, okay. Well, then I have seen that one then. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really fun movie to watch. I've seen it, and it's like a spoof version of the Universal monster movies, even though they make it at Universal. And it's very fun. It's meant to be, instead of it being frightening, it's meant to be funny, and it's meant to like be a subversive version of the Universal movie monsters that people know and love from that period. Which
Yeah, I definitely need to see the rest of them. I've never seen too many of Abbott and Costello films, but
mm,
my mom likes them. Except what did she say? She liked the short guy. She didn't like the tall one. She liked the
okay.
shorter guy.
Oh, that would be Costello. She liked the Lou Costello, and Abbott was the tall man.
Yes, yes, she was a fan of Costello. But I will
Mm,
say, um, Have you ever seen that clip of them both going about the baseball teams, who's on first and what's on
Yes,
second?
it's
Oh
one of
my
their famous
gosh.
routines that almost every person who loves classic comedy or baseball talks about. So yes, I have seen that clip from their TV show, but it's one of the best routines. I love it.
Oh, I've seen that thing numerous times.
Yes. Absolutely. So yeah, so we have about 5 minutes left. Um, what else can we say about this movie, I Married a Witch, besides that it's funny, it's one of the best rare Hollywood comedies. It's not scary, it's funny. It has a lot of humor and a lot of magic that I thought was pretty enjoyable. And there's a lot of interesting movies that people always talk about, like the scary horror movies from classic golden age of Hollywood, but then there's also like the horror comedies or uh I know this is not technically a I know this is not technically part of it, but I am a fan of, since you mentioned Claude Rains, and I'm a huge fan of his work. I loved him in Here Comes Mr. Jordan, which was the original basis. Oh, bless you. Which was
Thank
the
you.
basis for Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty, which I thought is one of my favorites.
Oh, okay. I've never seen that movie, but I might have to give that a watch now.
Yes. So yeah, Here Comes Mr. Jordan. It's basically for those who have never seen the film but may be familiar with the Warren Beatty version, it's basically the story about a sports player who one day gets killed. He's ascended into heaven and he's told that he's not supposed to arrive in heaven for another 50 years. And so he ends up in the body of this dead millionaire and he assumes a new identity. So that's where Mr. Jordan, played by Claude Rains, he's guiding him through this new life. And it's a really fun comedy film to watch.
Oh, you got hit me hooked. I'll have to watch that.
Yes, it's really good. It's got Liz Montgomery's dad, Robert Montgomery from
Okay.
Bewitched. That's the connection. And Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister, Evelyn Keyes. She's in the picture too. She plays the leading lady. And
Nice.
uh, the classic comic actor, Edward Everett Horton, he plays like the sort of second in command angel in the movie. Also available on Criterion. Criterion Channel has this movie, and it has an interview with Elizabeth Montgomery talking about her father, Robert Montgomery, when they made this movie. If you can find the movie, maybe on Amazon.
I'll have to give that a watch, definitely.
Yes, it's really good. They did a special theme a few months ago about movies dealing with characters who are in the afterlife, but they love someone who is alive and on Earth, which is something I like. I like that type of romantic story. They also feature a number of other movies, especially one that I have not seen from Emmerich and Pressburger, A Matter of Life and Death, also known as Stairway to Heaven, with David Niven, and a young Kim Hunter before she was in A Streetcar Named Desire.
Aw, yeah, I okay, so that movie, David Niven. I've seen him in a couple movies. Uh, was that one where it's black and white, but it's in color when he's in heaven?
I think that's the one. It's no, I think it's the other way around. I think it's when he is on Earth, it's in color, but when he goes to heaven, it's sort of black and white and in color. So yeah,
Okay,
I think that is the movie. But
okay.
yeah, I have not seen it, but I feel like I would love to watch the other Pressburger and Powell movies. I've seen The Red Shoes, which I love to death. It's really one of their best pictures. But this one I would love to see as well.
Yeah, I think that David Niven picture, that one I believe is on YouTube right now.
Okay.
Um, I have never seen the Red Shoes though. Heard of it, never seen it.
Oh, you'll love it. It's a blast, and it's really something to behold. Okay, so we got 1 minute left, and do you want to let our audience know about? Do you want to let our audience know before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a really good movie. Give it a watch. It's definitely a lot of fun. It's on YouTube. Um, And in the meantime, if you're interested in seeing my content, you can see my reviewer page, Classics with Courtney. I also have a YouTube channel. And if you just want to see what I post as far as old Hollywood is concerned, you can follow my other Instagram account. It's 20s_60s Hollywood.
Okay, this is Jordan Ramirez signing off, and thank you, Courtney. And until then, I'll see you at the movies. And Courtney, thank you again.
Thank you, Jordan.
Okay, bye.
Bye.